Hi, so it's Mark Fielding, Pritchard here again from ME Fieldings. So what we've done is we've put up a couple of little sort of lectures, whatever you want to call them, on conflict of interest, cunningly called conflicts of interest 1 and 2. And as I said, when we were preparing those lectures, that we were also going to put up some case studies, because I think that as a subject it makes much more sense when you see some actual practical situations. So we pulled some case studies here off of the internet. And we're just going to go through them just now. If you do have any questions on this, you can contact me through the website, which is at the bottom left. I have to get my head moving that way. Bottom left? Yes, there we go. Bottom left of the page, so it's mefielding.com. Go onto the contact us page and you can send us some examples. You can also find us on Facebook and you can also find us here on YouTube. Okay, I hope therefore that the people who are watching this have already actually watched the first two. The first two will give you a nice, good technical background, and now you will see the actual application of conflict of interest in the workplace. See you on the next slide. Okay, so let's start straight away then with case study number 1, which is called Philip and Eddie. We should have called it Brenda and Eddie, shouldn't we? Like the popular steadies from the Billy Joel song, if you're old enough. Right, what I'm going to do with these things then is we'll go through the scenario and then I'll go through how you should approach it. Conflict of interest isn't a big topic, I don't think, at ACCA, but if you are studying for any exams as well, you need to pick up a little bit of strategy on how to answer these questions. So what we'll do therefore is that when we go to the answers, now you are currently on slide number 2, I believe, or slide number 3 is the answer. So the answer will be given to you, but I'm not going to give any commentary on slide number 3. For slide number 3, it's just written down what we knew was there already. So we're going to go through this and then I'm going to talk you through an answer. Please can you remember this therefore, when you're looking for an answer, you've got to look for two things. The two things that you're looking for is one, what are the risks? And secondly, what should the guy have done? Now the guy here will be Philip. Okay. Right, have a read of the slide, then you might want to stop me talking. So, what the hell, I'm going to keep talking anyway, that's my nature. Right, so therefore, it tells you that Philip has a very large house at which he employs a handyman. I hope everybody knows what a handyman is. And the handyman is called Eddie. Philip earns his living as the head of an NGO. And the NGO requires some maintenance work, so Philip goes ahead and hires Eddie to do the work. Right, now the principle of what's happening here, therefore, and I think the nuance that's in the question, is that Philip just goes ahead and hires this guy. So there's no tender process, there's no call for proposals, there's no interviews, there's no background checks. He just simply sets the thing up and purchases it for him. Now, you do find in real life that, generally there is no burning desire to commit fraud or to steal money or anything. It's just that the guy knows him, he does a good job. And many of you as well, or many organisations rather, will have shopping levels. So you can go out and just buy something if it's below a certain level. So probably that's what's happening here as well. That's our background. Just wants to hire someone who's good at the job, will get the job done, and probably this is the guy. Right, the problem that you have with all of this conflict of interest stuff, and I hope that you remember back to your days when you were studying in lectures 1 and 2. The problem with conflict of interest is that nothing necessarily has actually happened, but it might. Now, one of the biggest risks and problems that you have is this idea of perception. So someone else gets to hear about this, and on that grounds they just naturally assume that you're a criminal. And we've all seen it, haven't we? Mr. X is head of such and such a department and he hires his brother. Now, it may well be that the brother is a fantastic guy, does a fantastic job, but the perception is that the guy's hired his brother, and therefore he's a crook, jobs for the boys, and so on and so forth. Right, here's our background. So, what are the issues that you've got here? Well, we don't know. We don't know what the NGO has as procurement processes. So, do we need a proposal? Do we need a tender? Blah, blah, blah. I'm hoping that if you're listening to this from a technical point of view, you know what these things are. But nothing has been done whatsoever. He's just literally gone and hired his own handyman. The problem that we have, that we've already covered therefore, so this is the risk. Remember I said we talk about, first of all, identifying the risk. The risk is that people just assume that Philip is a crook. Philip is just hiring his mates and, whatever. There's nothing really happening here. He's just jobs for the boys. Okay? You can take that a step further and seeing this happening in some organisations where I've worked, is that therefore now what's happening is that Philip is employing him at the NGO. So what's he doing with the billing? Is Philip now getting a nice chunky discount on the work that he does at Philip's big house? Remember, Philip has a very large house. The work that he does at Philip's house, and therefore is he overbilling the NGO to recover his time and his cost of materials and so on. Once again, there's nothing in the question to say that this is what's happening, but we all know how people talk. Yeah? And some people as well just have a natural knack for getting themselves into these scenarios. Okay? Furthermore, questions will be asked, maybe, possibly, again, it's all maybe, but you have to look at where these risks are within the NGO. If people within the NGO know that Eddie works for Philip, what's their opinion now? So you can't give hard work to Eddie, because if you do, he'll just trot to the boss and tell stories on you. You've got, the cuckoo in the nest situation. So that's what we've got. Just looking at this and remembering conflicts of interest, it's all about perception and what people might think. So therefore, we've got this idea that, well, there's been no tender process, and what could that lead people to believe? Could lead them to believe jobs for the boys. Could lead them to believe that Philip now gets his work for nothing. Could lead them to believe that, well, Eddie's just a little bit above the law. It's all coulds with this, okay? But if you're working in the compliance department and you're looking at this, this is what people will say. People love to gossip. Just watch your TV, it's full of them, isn't it? Steve Wilkos, Jeremy Kyle, all this stuff. That's what it's all about. Rumours and stories. So what should Philip have done? Oh, Philip should have declared his interest. He's a director, isn't he? Just let me have a look at the question again. He's not only a director, he's the head of the thing. So as the head of the thing, he should have gone to his board of directors, or he should have gone to whoever is responsible for this. It's maintenance work, it's not real high level stuff. He should have gone to the person and he said, I've got this really good guy. Just check him out. I'll give him I can give him a reference. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. The guy does good quality work, but he has to declare his interest. You don't just suddenly find that the guy's got a signed contract of employment or a signed consulting contract. Now what you need to do is some remedial action. So Philip needs to come forward and say, look guys, really, really sorry chaps, but this is what I've done. I've hired this guy. What's the goal to his work? And then you need to almost start apologising for what you're doing. So, excuse me for that. Philip needs therefore to take some remedial action. He needs to get some people to review the guy's work. He needs to, the guy being Eddie, he needs to get somebody to review Eddie's contract. And within that, those people have got to say, yeah, this guy's qualified to do the job, and yeah, he does a good job, and yeah, the price is transparent and free. And everything that you do has to be minuted. Always remember that. Everything should be written down. Okay, there you go. It's a nice, easy little case study. Case study number 1 about a guy who's just gone out and hired someone, and he's not thought about the consequences. And the probability is that if he's earning enough money to have a big house and he's the head of a reasonably chunky NGO, then it's probably that he just doesn't want to think about it. Maintenance work, I want some light bulbs changed, I need to spend 2 working days on this, I don't think so. But look at the trouble he's got himself into. This concept of thinking ahead, coming up front and just saying, I recommend this guy, but go look at a couple of other people as well, is something that's going to come back and back and back. Because coming up early, and even for very small contracts like this, being open, honest, and remember our magic word, transparent, will save you so much time in the long run. Okay, there you go. Right, there's an actual written answer which is going to be on slide number 3, because you're on slide number 2, so there's no commentary on slide number 3, you just read what's on the slide. You don't need me to read it to you, you can read it for yourselves, you're smart people. And then we'll move on to case study number 2. Okay, so case study number 1 therefore was Philip and Eddie, and again you saw that the magic message really was just plan ahead and be transparent, and that's the thread that you're going to see through these things. If you're looking there at Philip and Eddie and you're going, yeah Mark, but what about, then send us a message and we'll do our best to get the message back to you. It's just before Christmas, I'm away actually for the next couple of weeks, but if you send a message it'll get through to me and we'll find you somehow. Right, case study number 2 then, which should be on the slide. Filming this on Movie Maker, so I can't actually see the slide. But the slide itself is all about a little lady who is called Lucy. Maybe she's a big lady, but let's assume that she's a little lady. So let's have a look at the question. Lucy needs a specialised component for her department. Right, I hope that you're all okay with your procurement. So it's probable, therefore, that what we're purchasing now is you're going to get some call for, call for tenders. We have to, the general procurement process is that we will ensure that we will accept those tenders which meet the technical specifications, and then once you've looked at the technical specifications, you take the cheapest one. So that's generally how they happen. So Lucy's going to sit on this, and it tells us that the purchase will be subject to a public tender. There you go. And there'll be a panel which will develop the tender documentation and evaluate the tenders received. So I'm assuming, and you do see words in the question here, specialised. So it's telling you that the people on this panel have to know a lot about what they're talking about. You're not buying a guy. It's not like case study number 1 where the guy cuts the grass and doesn't cut the grass, does he? He's maintenance, so he's changing light bulbs and stuff. You can't really go wrong with it. Right, so we've got Lucy there. For now, we find that Lucy's cousin manufactures the products, presumably in some form of a company or something, rather than just on his own. But she decides that she's not going to tell him. Right, you have to be careful with that because she says she's not going to tell him, but even if she doesn't, who knows what she's going to do, and who knows, more importantly, what people will believe. She also doesn't tell any of her colleagues, and here it doesn't say which colleagues as well, the fact that her cousin might tender. So whether it's the people on the panel, or whether it's the people that she works with, or whether it's her boss, but she hasn't told anyone at this stage. So make that assumption that she hasn't told anyone. The cousin subsequently submits a tender, finding it however people find these things, and Lucy tells the colleagues and reports it to the ethics committee. So this organisation has an ethics committee. On that basis, therefore, she tells the ethics committee, and the ethics committee decides that Lucy will oversee the process, but there will be some form of independent review. That's probably what you would expect. It tells us that she needs a specialist component for her department, which makes it sound very much like she's head of a department, and she needs the component. So you need her technical advice. If you take her out the process, you might not actually get what you want. And it says that they're going to oversee the process. That there will be an independent review after she's overseen the process. But it doesn't tell us what the independent review is, how technically gifted those people are, and exactly what documents and processes they will be reviewing. So there's a little bit of a grey area for you there then. And lo and behold, the cousin wins the tender, and it says that one of the unsuccessful tenderers makes a bid protest. So therefore what's happened is that someone has complained after the process is over. This is a process which, as I'm sure you can all imagine, is very, very common in the United States of America, where people complain about not winning tenders all the time. It's reasonably common, I believe, in sort of Germany and Austria, these places, but not very common in Britain. Trust me, I'm sure it's coming. So we get a bid process. Right, that's the question then. So when we look, therefore, at what are the risks, well, the point is again that we come back to this idea of perception. Lucy, if you just look at it from the outside, and let's assume that you're someone in another department, or someone who just has a nasty mind, what are you going to say? You're going to say, Lucy oversaw this process, and then she gave the contract to her cousin. Yeah, that's going to be cutting to the chase with the sort of gossip angle that's happening there. And that's what it is that you kind of need to kill off. So Lucy, therefore, again, what we're really looking for, what everyone is saying is that she should have come forward. I suppose you can say, well, if you didn't tell the guy about it, and maybe you didn't know for certain that he was going to tender, but if you got a cousin who makes exactly the components that are in your, quote, specialised component for your department, you should have a pretty good idea that the guy's going to tender for this, and people should know that you know this, and you should come forward and disclose it. Yeah. Right, other things that you would want to know about this, it says that she's going to be in charge of the panel, but it doesn't say how many people are on the panel. It could be 2 people, it could be 10, and it depends what their relative strengths are in terms of power on that panel, and also their personalities, if you know that. If it's just Lucy and one other, and the other person is someone who's always off sick or can't be bothered to go to the meetings, or just, Mr. Yeah man, then you're in trouble, aren't you? Once again, the perception is that Lucy is the smart cookie and she's given the contract to her cousin. If there's a lot of people on the panel and she's just one vote amongst 10, then it's not such a big deal. Right, the question comes forward. Let me just have a look at the question again. So it's Lucy gone. It tells us that she reports it to the ethics committee, and she tells it to her colleagues. Little bit of grey area there because you don't know what she's telling them, and when it says colleagues, you don't know who they are. So it's still not necessarily clear that the rest of the panel know that this cousin guy actually does this himself. Finally, we already mentioned it, talked about the review. Right, those are the kind of issues. I hope once again, you sat through one of these case studies, case study number 2, same kind of points coming out. Lucy needed to come forward at the start. If it's a specialised department, specialised component, you're hearing this word specialised, and then you find that the cousin rates it. The fact that she didn't know that there was a good chance that he was going to tender for it is pretty slim in real life. And she should have come forward and said, look, I think my cousin might tender for this. I haven't told him, but what do I do if he does? And then we can have all the procedures in place, and she's acted up front. But the problem is that she hasn't. Now what's happening, you see, is that we're getting a retroactive action. So just stop a minute. We talked already about this idea that we've got that we've got a perception issue. So now let's talk about what they're actually going to do. They're coming in after the guy's tendered, and they're going to review her work. The problem that you have with that is that I would say, well, that's fine. She wrote the tender went out, and the guy submitted his documents. How do we know that she didn't write the tender in such a way that only he can win it? How do you know? We didn't say. We have to have this special part that goes into this, and only he can get there. How do we know she didn't write it, that there has to be some previous experience? So you have to have 25 of these things made when you know that the number 2 company's only ever made 24 of them. You can do all of these tender documents and change all of your tender documents so that only he can win. And this review process, who knows if that's going to pick it up or not. So we actually don't know, therefore, what's going to happen. We also don't know when the review is going to begin. Now, in big $100 million, $200 million building bridge and road tenders for governments, for example, there's usually a cooling off period. So in other words, there will be a period from when the contract is signed until when the work can start. So let's say a month. Now, if you're in America, what happens is everybody piles in during that month to get their bid processed. In Britain, nobody seems to bother. But that's the point. Now, what if he wins the contract and then the review starts 3 or 4 months after the contract's already begun? Some of the components could already have been delivered. So we have an issue there. We have an issue there about the review. When does it start? When does it finish? And we talked about already, what does it cover? We've also got to mean how long will the review be? Who's going to be on it? And so on and so forth. So therefore, what we're going to do is, if you look at it in terms of what she did wrong, she was too late. When she did this, she told her colleagues. Well, we don't know who she told and what she told, and we don't know how many people are on the panel. So those are your kind of red flags. Those are your risks. What your issues therefore is therefore sorry, my math seems to have stopped working now. And what your problems therefore, and the things you need to say, or what people are going to say, are they going to say that he did know, she told him anyway. She designed the tender so that he won. And that the review is just going to be some couple of guys in the room for 30 minutes and then it's all over. And those are your issues. And that's what you're trying to avoid. Once again, it was all avoidable. Okay, this is slide number 1, 2, 3, 4. So slide number 5 is the answer to this, to Lucy, and slide number 5 will not have any commentary on it. Any questions? Hey, you know where I am by now. Righty-ho, number 3 then, our final case study that we're going to put up for today. Number 3 is called Giovannie, and Giovannie is about a gentleman who works in a car dealership, so he's selling cars, and he wishes to buy, what does he want to buy? He wants to buy some components. If he buys the components, so he puts out a call for tenders, and a particular organisation which we're going to call Boffin quote him a price, and they tell us that if he buys a large number of these things, he gets some sort of a prize. And the prize here are free rides in some rally cars. That sounds quite a nice prize, I guess, for a youngish guy. And it also tells us that Boffin has the lowest price. Reading further, therefore, Giovannie decides that he wants to use the vouchers for an up-and-coming promotion, which is for safe teenage drivers. So he's going to give the things away as prizes. So therefore, he's going to buy these goods. The company he's going to buy them from are the cheapest company anyway. If we just look at the components aren't they? Same as for Lucy. With components, but he gets these vouchers anyway. And with the vouchers, what he's going to do is he's going to use them as prizes. Right, and this is quite a sad story actually, because the guy quite clearly thinks that this is a good idea. Not only does he get some really good components, he gets them cheap, but he gets these prizes which he can use for teenagers. And so it sounds like a win-win-win kind of situation. It's one of those things as well, you know, when you're dealing with things like fraud and corruption, you get that kind of mentality. Everyone's up to something. We just got to catch them. You know, that's all we need to do. And that's a little bit of a shame, I have to be honest. That's your background. What does Giovanni need to do? Right, you need to scratch the surface and think a little bit deeper here. Assuming that this car dealership is a reasonable sized company, they will have a policy on gifts. And that's what this really is, because I think what the question is telling you is that the gift from Boffin is to Giovanni. It's not actually to the company. So Giovanni therefore needs to ensure that whatever he does, he follows the company policy. The company policy will inevitably say that two things. One, he has to make full and open declaration, which, you know, it's an email, let's be honest. I mean, he should know how many of these vouchers he's going to get. The second thing is that he has to make sure that when they come in, that they actually go into the company's books and records. So they're actually registered as the property of the company. And that might be a bit more of a problem. But that's what he needs to do. And that is pretty much it. The only other thing I would say is that when you have situations or industries like this, and lots of industries work like this, it's, you know, how business is done. The restaurant trade, you know, a couple of free steaks for a chef and so on. You know, if you're working in the car leasing industry, yeah, of course the boss gets to use the car free for a weekend now and then. What this really does highlight is it needs, and this is why I like this so much, because we obviously offer this as training. You need to have training, such as the training we offer. And the reason is it's because people need to understand that, yeah, these things happen. That's how business is done. And there's nothing wrong there. But you need to disclose it. You need to be open. You need to be honest. And you need to make sure that when you're in a purchasing environment, the procurement department, you're procuring goods based on the need of the organisation, not on your opportunity to spend weekends in the backs of rally cars. Okay? So, to give you the answer, therefore, Giovanni can take the vouchers and he can use them the way that he wants. Full and total transparency, open declaration needs to be run, and we need to see some evidence that when the vouchers are received that he goes to the bookkeeper or whoever and they go into the books and records. Okay, that was slide number, I forgot now, is it 246? That's slide number 6. Slide number 7 will give you the answer, but I don't think that was a particularly different one. Just want to say thanks very much for listening. We've run through the case studies with you fairly fast. If you have questions, you know where we are. If you like what you see, then please like the video and follow us on Facebook, blah, blah, all that stuff. And if you want some training, we run 3-day training courses on this. There's a brochure on the website as well. Other than that, today is the 17th of December, so I hope you all have a great Christmas. Bye-bye.